Let's take a little twirl around the rink with a morning skate edition of the Inside Edge. Here are your hosts, Bob McElligott and Jody Shelley.
Welcome to another morning skate edition of the Inside Edge. Today we are at PNC Arena here in Raleigh, North Carolina. Blue Jackets going to go into the Christmas break after this game tonight against the Carolina Hurricanes. I'm Bob McElligott alongside of Jody Shelley. And Jody, the Blue Jackets come into this game after a big win at home on Saturday night over the Philadelphia Flyers. The Hurricanes coming into this game after an overtime loss to the Tampa Bay Lightning. But you've been in this situation before. You know you're getting a 3-day break right after this game is over. I would imagine both teams will be energized and be everything they've got will be out on the line tonight.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's we talk about segments during the season, and Christmas break is definitely a big one. So the last few games, I'm sure the players have been watching and looking at the situation and knowing, like probably 5 games out, that there's a push towards Christmas because it sure is nice going into a Christmas break after a win, and you can sit back and look at the standings, and if they can beat the Hurricanes tonight, they know what position they'll be in. They'll put themselves right in that logjam at 36 points. What's interesting about you said that they lost. The Hurricanes lost in overtime last game. They have less wins than the Blue Jackets. They actually have only 14 wins, 14 losses, but 8 overtime losses, which gives them 4 extra points, which they're making up. So that's an interesting stat. And they're coming off one of those overtime losses last game, as you mentioned, picking up the point. But that puts them 2 points ahead of the Blue Jackets at 36 and the Blue Jackets at 34.
Well, we're joined right now by Chuck Caton, who is the radio voice of the Carolina Hurricanes. And Chuck, right now, your team, we were just looking at the records of the two teams, almost identical. Blue Jackets just a couple of points behind the Hurricanes. What's going on with this club right now?
Well, they've had some inconsistencies. I think basically they've had games where they have needed a big power play goal when they could get it, and the power plays kind of failed them most of the season. They're down in the standings, the statistics that way, and I think that's what it's boiled down to. I think they've gotten pretty good goaltending. It's been kind of surprising that Justin Peters has come on and basically played so consistently after some great years in the American Hockey League, and he's played well here. And I think if you were to start the season and say where are the shortcomings and where are the high points of this team, you would have said that this team would be a better goal-scoring team and would have trouble defensively, but the opposite's happened. They've actually played pretty well defensively and haven't gotten the goal-scoring, from people like Alexander Semin or Jordan Stahl or Tuomo Ruutu specifically, and that's been basically the story of this team, and that's why they're about a 500 team right now.
And they have, looking at their record, as Bob mentioned, they have 8 points in overtime losses. Is this a team that's very defensive? At a point in the game, they actually shut back and play for that extra point, or is there a focus, or it's just something that it's worked out for them?
Well, it's been strange because they played some pretty good teams and not gotten the 2 points. They've sent games in overtime. Early in the year, they had 2 big games against L.A. and Chicago in this building. And in both of those games had to actually battle from behind to get a point. The same thing that happened in the game against the Anaheim Ducks, which they won in an overtime scenario, in a shootout. So it's been kind of a different scenario for them. Whenever, for example, the other night against Tampa, they couldn't get that next goal. They only had a couple of power play chances, but they couldn't score a big goal when they needed it to get a 2-goal lead. And I think that's real important for this team, is to get a little bit of a cushion, and they just couldn't do it. It was a 2-1 game, and then Marty St. Louis scored a power play goal midway in the third period, and Justin Peters had to stand on his head. So when they get into the late stages of games, when they have the lead, they're a bit fragile. They're probably a lot like the Blue Jackets in that way, and that's why the teams really haven't been able to get more than maybe a 2 or 3 game winning streak together.
And has Peters been standing on his head consistently for you guys?
No, the other night was an aberration, really. I mean, that was the first time that the Hurricanes, I think, have averaged only given up like 32, 33 shots a game. And that night, it was a back-to-back. They had played the night before against Washington here, really deserved to win the game and didn't. The power play again, special teams was the key. Washington scored 3 power play goals in that game and an empty netter. Ovechkin got his 400th in the empty net the other night. So it was a 4-2 game. But no, he's been solid, but he hasn't had. I mean, hasn't been overworked in any stretch of the imagination. That 50-shot performance by Tampa was certainly an aberration.
Jiri Tlusty, what's the story with him? I know he's a guy that you've relied upon in the past here. This team's relied upon in the past. What's going on with him right now?
Well, basically, he started the season on the line with Eric Stahl and Alexander Semin, which was very prolific last year in the shortened season. And this year, he didn't get off to as good a start. I know he got 2 goals the other night, but he's basically been moved around from the second to the third line. Nathan Gerby basically has fit in real well with Jordan Stahl. So Tlusty has been moved to the third line with Tuomo Ruutu playing with Eric Stahl and Jeff Skinner now. And you're looking at a guy like that. He's actually, probably fits well in that third line position. But Riley Nash and Patrick Dwyer are his line mates right now. And, it's not exactly an offensive line. I mean, it's a line that can contribute. You want your third line to be able to chip in. But Yuri has not played as well as far as the offensive side of it, although he's got 6 goals now. So all of a sudden, if he gets hot, he's not going to supersede Jeff Skinner, I don't think, on Eric Stahl's line again. But I'm sure that if he continues to score goals, then he might be able to work himself up to maybe Jordan Stahl's line and contribute that way. But he's a very good defensive player. I think that gets lost in what assets he can bring to a team. He's a good two-way player.
Speaking of Jordan Stahl, since he's been here, has he brought what the organization was hoping that he would bring when he came over from Pittsburgh?
Well, that's a good question, because I've never seen him as more than a third-line centerman, but I know the Hurricanes think that he can be a second-line center, and he's shown flashes of that, especially recently. He's been better offensively, but, he's the kind of a guy that's a good penalty killer. I think that the Hurricanes right now are relying on him to be the second centerman behind his brother right now, and that's just the way it is. And he's playing with Alex Semin now and Nathan Gerby, and I think he's got more to give. I mean, he's had flashes where he's been better offensively, but he's a good, reliable defensive player. And one thing about his game now over the last 2 or 3 games, he's been more physical. And I think that's been a catalyst to him creating more scoring opportunities for he and his line mates. And I think that that's the way he's got to play. But as far as the mindset that the Hurricanes have, yes, they want him to be a strong second centerman. And that's something I think that is still a work in progress with him.
Jody, you have anything else?
Well, no, I always think of this. It's an interesting matchup with Columbus now in the East, and the way that the Metropolitan Division is lined up. And you're here in Carolina, and it's a dogfight already. I mean, it's really there's a logjam here, and it's an interesting dynamic. And I think for the Carolina Hurricanes and the Columbus Blue Jackets to be in this situation with the Philadelphia Flyers, the New York Rangers, it's pretty remarkable. And I just don't. How do you think how this is? What do you think about how this is shaping up in this division?
Well, first of all, I think that our division is getting maligned around the National Hockey League. I don't know whether fairly or unfairly. They're calling it the Southeast Division again, which we're used to being with Washington in the years ago, and our division with. But the setup to me is tougher. I mean, to me, this is a tough way to make the playoffs. Where only the top 3 teams in each division are guaranteed a playoff spot, and I think people lose sight of the fact that games outside our division, when we play teams in the Atlantic, those games are just as important, because those are where the 2 wild card teams are right now. And you look at teams like Detroit and Toronto, which are now only a handful of points. They've struggled recently, so you have to look at it that way too. So I don't think people thought Philly or the Rangers would be where they are right now. I think they thought that those 2 teams would be much above 500, and I guess those are the teams that are keeping our teams in it. But I do think that there's a lot of similarities between the Blue Jackets and the Hurricanes, and that's what makes tonight's game a big game, because not only the fact that we play 5 times and are just starting the season series now, but that you have to try to take advantage of teams like Philly and the Rangers and even the Devils, who are not probably playing to their potential right now, and at some point you think they're going to. So you almost have to keep up with those Joneses, and I think both our teams are in that boat.
Yeah, and it's an interesting matchup. Makes for a great setup here for tonight.
Yeah, it actually does. I got to ask you one last thing. We got here yesterday. It was 76 degrees. 76 degrees. And I have to say, does Chuck Caton ever miss those days in Hartford at this time of year instead of the 76 degrees here in Raleigh?
Not weather-wise, no. I'm tired of shoveling snow. And
So you haven't done it for so long you can't even say it anymore.
That's right. And I love the golf. I'll tell you that on some of the off days. But no, this is still an aberration. I mean, 76 this time of year here is something. And I do remember one time in Hartford where it was 80 degrees between Christmas and New Year's. But that was very, very rare. And the trouble was we had a trip to Washington where it was 85. So all along the East Coast, it was kind of like the weather the last couple of days where it was warm even up there. So, it's beautiful. I mean, the nicest thing about this area is that people have really taken to hockey and they love it. And I never thought it would have happened. I was one of the skeptics when this team moved, but happy to be here now.
All right, what are you doing for Christmas?
We've got a lot of family in. I've got 3 boys, 2 of which are going to be here. One has 3 children, so I've got 3 grandkids coming in on Christmas night, and we'll have a wonderful time with all of them. My mother lives with us now. She's the ripe young age of 90, and so we're going to have everybody. And I don't know if she's going to be aware of too many things around her right now, but she's going to enjoy it, and we'll have a good couple of days before we entertain the Penguins on the 27th.
All right, Chuck. Well, thank you very much. Merry Christmas to you. We'll see you later on tonight for some barbecue downstairs, okay?
Absolutely. I'll be there. Thanks, guys.
That's Chuck Hayton. He's the radio voice of the Carolina Hurricanes. All right, let's talk about the Blue Jackets and how they stand coming into this game tonight. Marian Gaborik missed about 5 weeks. He came back. He played 4 shifts. He got an assist, and he got a broken collarbone to go along with that. Now, this team is used to playing without Marian Gaborik in the lineup, and I realize that. So from that standpoint, it's not going to be a big blow, but it is a big blow when you saw him play those 4 shifts the other night, and he looked like a hungry player because he would make this team a lot different.
I'm telling you what, Bob, you're right. And it's something about having that elite player in the lineup. It lets everyone else around them, you talk about good players making, or great players making other players better around them. Well, he had an impact immediately. Sean Couturier, who's a shutdown forward for the Philadelphia Flyers, his focus in the first game in Philadelphia was Ryan Johansson, the leading point getter, the leading goal scorer for the Blue Jackets. So his role, every time Johansson was out there, was to get out there and frustrate that line. And he did a good job of it. Johansson didn't get any production in Philly. And then you come back, Gaborik's in the lineup. Well, guess who's going over the boards or quick change, and every time Gaborik was on the ice for that short period of time, those 4 shifts. Couturier was out there against Gaborik, taking the attention away from Johansson and the other Dubinsky and the other players out there. He opens up more ice for other players in many ways, and that's definitely one of the matchup. You don't realize, but these great players in the league play against the best defensive players and the best defensive defensemen in the National Hockey League, which is another test. But like I said, it opens it up, and that's a huge hole for the Columbus Blue Jackets. It was exciting to get him back, and like you said, he was very excited to be back and eager and hungry, and it's something that the Blue Jackets are going to miss. But in saying that, they have adapted pretty good to not having it in the lineup. There's been players stepped up, and they've found their identity without him. McElligott's another guy. That's a huge hole. He's a guy that I thought drove the engine for a lot of games and a lot of shifts for this team. Very fun to watch, and he's got a contagious way about him. He just plays the game. The effort is there, and it's hard to go out a shift after him and try to take it off after seeing what he does out there. So those are two big losses the last game against Philadelphia.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I was going to say the Matt Calvert loss due to injury is almost in some ways bigger than the Gaborik loss because
no question.
Because when Matt was out earlier in the year, and then when he came back, look at Vancouver. When he came back, that's when things started to turn around a little bit for this team. Derek McKenzie, Jack Skilley, they're going to be able to play. And again, Derek McKenzie is a similar type player to Matt Calvert. Usually plays down on the 4th line, maybe doesn't play up, but he's got that ability where Todd Richards can move him around if he needs to.
Yeah, no question. He's a leader, and he's a depth guy, but he's a guy that has a lot of upside like Calvert. Like, he's got that energy. He drives that energy train for the whole team, and having a guy like that back in the lineup is always good. Good news. And the Jack Skilley, I love Jack Skilley. We all love him. He's a fast player. We've said many times he's a former first-round pick. He's got that shot. He's got that shot down the right or down the wing. He's got that mastered. I mean, 3 of his goals have been top corner, and I mean top corner where the crossbar meets the post. He labels it, and I think maybe he's got to find a new shot because goalies will start to see what he's. Maybe he's got 1 or 2. He can sneak by him again, but they're soon going to just heavily play that blocker side, which was the glove side for Steve Mason.
Yeah, I said that in Philly when he scored. All 3 goals that he scored this year have been the exact same thing. It's like watching a replay every time.
Yeah, there was no question he was not going to pass the puck. It was going to be a shot, and I thought, maybe somewhere, but there was only one place he wanted to put it. And I actually mentioned that to him the other day, and he had a huge smile. He said, "Yeah, I got that one down."
Yeah, he sure does. Well, speaking of having it down, you don't have to do your hair tonight or anything. You're back on radio tonight, so you can look however you want to in a person's mind's eye, and so you look great tonight. You ready to come back?
I'll be really, yeah. I'll look masterful tonight. I have a brand new suit that I have on. If you can picture this, the fans that are listening, brand new suit. I'm going to go to the salon today and get my hair all done perfect. I'm going to get my teeth whitened, so it's going to be a great day on radio. Just visually, the fans can just picture that themselves.
Jeff Rimmer says Jody's got a great face for radio. When you say you're going to the salon, all I can picture is you sitting under one of those big old hair dryers.
With curlers.
Yeah, right.
Jeff's on his way to the powder room, by the way. He starts early getting the makeup on.
Tonight's game starts at 7 o'clock. Jeff Rimmer will be on Fox Sports Ohio with Bill Davids. Jody and I will be on the Blue Jackets radio network. The last game before the Christmas break here in Carolina. Blue Jackets and Hurricanes. Thanks for listening to the Morning Skate edition of the Inside Edge.
You've been listening to the Morning Skate edition of the Inside Edge. Come back every game day to get the breakdown from Bob McElligott and Jody Shelley.